Welcome to MadLit Musings
today here at
podcast,
MadLit
where you get
Musings.
to eavesdrop
I hope you join
on
us
your favorite
again.
authors.
And if you
without
want
getting
to,
caught.
be sure you like
I've been
and
stoked to have
subscribe
authors like
here at
Angela
your favorite
Hunt,
podcast
Bill Myers,
player,
Nicole
or on
Deese,
YouTube,
Tessa
because you
Afshar,
won't
comedian
want to
Bob
miss
Smiley,
all the
more on the
wonderful
show,
alerts
and
that let
this
you
year I have
know when
another
we
great
have
lineup
another
of storytellers
conversation
and truth
for you to
sayers.
eavesdrop on.
If you love to eavesdrop at coffee shops like I do, this is the podcast for you. It's where we get real, we get tough, we laugh, and we might even cry. It's where we meet authors on a different level, where every story and podcast episode has its own heartbeat. So hang out with me today. I'm Jaime Jo Wright, your host at MadLit Musings. This is your podcast for real chats with real authors about real life. Hey everyone, it is Jaime Jo Wright here at MadLit Musings, and today I have with me a new author. Well, she's not new necessarily, but she's new to a lot of you and me, and yeah, she's new. So hey Nikki, this is Nikki Florica. She's with us today.
Hello.
It's like the worst introduction ever.
No, it was great. I loved it.
Like,
I
you're
loved
new,
it.
but you're not new, but you are new.
I am new.
You're new.
I'll take that.
Is this going to be your first book? Because I had a feeling.
Officially, yes.
Okay.
I did like a little indie thing back in the day when I was in high school, but we don't count that. So
Okay.
officially,
Okay.
yes.
Yes. So we have debut author Nikki Florica with us today.
There you go. I will take that.
And we are here to talk about her new book. But before we do that, your bio that you sent me was kind of funny because it says you're a full-time story addict and an advocate for all things epic. So
Yes.
right there, we have to pause and you must explain.
So, I would love to talk about that. Okay.
Yeah, I figured you would.
My
There's
initial
so much
blurb.
there. Okay.
That was a recent edit because my initial blurb, I think, said something about me being like a full-time English student or whatever, which is no longer true as of last week.
There you go.
But when I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my bio, I've realized in recent months that my passion is not so much for books for the sake of books, but it is truly a passion for story. And books are one amazing outlet for story, but that's my heart is for just storytelling in all forms. And so that I felt was necessary to say. And epic is just my absolute favorite approach to story. Mm-hmm. There is obviously room for all kinds of stories, but just for me, that the stories that are vast, that say cosmic things, that are large in scale, and often that show us things about God through that, because really the story we're living, the universal story that God is writing, is a huge one. Right?
No, it's not exactly
battle.
Yeah,
exactly. So I love epic because through those kinds of stories, that's where I learn things about God or really think about the story that's being written around us by God.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's great. I think that's absolutely great. There's kind of a thing with stories where people take the word epic and they apply it naturally to like speculative fiction or something like that. But I always feel like it could really apply to any story because every story is kind of like its own epic journey for the characters that are in there, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I do think too that the word can be like overused in certain contexts. Like there's room for a word to lose meaning if it's used too much. That's true. Yeah, absolutely. It's not specific to fantasy. No, but I do love fantasy epic.
I will argue though that you can't overuse the word epic when referring to coffee.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Now that we're united on that front.
I'm not even a big coffee drinker for pleasure, but
this podcast is over. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I drink it in copious amounts, but for function mostly.
So it's not for pleasure, it's for survival.
It is for survival. Yes, okay. It's just necessary.
I like that. Okay, and so then the other part of your bio says you dream of being in a musical number, and that's kind of like sandwiched with Latin and God stamping hearts with eternity. So explain that a little bit.
You know what? I'm a general geek, and that is a big part of what I bring to writing. And I love musical theater, but I've never done it. So it's like this pipe dream thing that I watch other people do and that I dream about. And Latin, I studied a little bit in my university studies and just loved that. But yeah, I think it's fun to bring all your geekiness to the stories you write. And
it's true.
yeah, and obviously the writing to tickle the part of our hearts that God has stamped with eternity, that I've realized is kind of my goal. It's the thing that is driving me while I'm writing these stories. Not always is there like a very specific, like, oh, here's the theological thing that I want people to come away with, but
Right.
it's
Right.
I want to grab people in that part of their hearts that God might speak to them through.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yep. I love that. Okay, so let's go there. You have written a book which is, would you say it's classified as a romantasy
I
or
guess so,
or
or
fantasy?
medieval fantasy
Medieval
with a
fantasy
romance. Like
with
I've heard it classified as both.
okay, okay, because I've heard this series classified as romantasy, but I didn't want to just like pigeonhole you into that either. But it's called
On the
Heir of,
website, it says medieval.
does it
Medieval
say?
fantasy
Okay.
is on the
Okay.
website. Yeah.
All right. Well, I love all things medieval. So that's a good start. So this is called Heir of Light, a Blood of Kings novel. Now this is book 4 in a
Mhm.
collaboration series. So tell us a little bit about just kind of like the whole scope of this series before we get to talking about just your story specifically.
Sure. So the series is kind of a spin-off of Jill's original Blood of Kings,
Mhm.
which had its own kind of like story. It followed a set of characters. That one had a very epic story about kind of redeeming a world that was trapped in darkness. But of course, Jill had all these amazing side characters that come and go in the story,
Right.
but you never really find out like what their stories are.
Right.
So
Right.
the Legends collection was an opportunity for a few of us, and Jill being one of them,
Hmm.
to pick some characters that we felt people might want to follow a little more
Okay.
and flesh out those stories. So
Okay.
they're all like standalone,
Hmm.
but there are some threads that run through them all that are kind of tying them together and drawing us toward, you
Yeah.
know, something larger.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So we're talking about Jill Williamson, and she wrote the original series Blood of Kings. And then these are sub characters now that you each went in and picked out, and you really wrote your own story, but you can kind of link them back if you needed to. Correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. So if people really wanted to get the full effect of the epic adventure, they would read Jill's books, Blood of Kings, which I think there's 3 of them, correct?
3. Yeah.
3. Okay. And then you could graduate into these. Or if you don't want to do all of that reading, you could just get yours and be totally fine reading it by itself, correct?
Yes, but I do think things would make more sense if you had read at least some of the original trilogy.
Okay. Yeah.
But also I don't think they're like inaccessible if you haven't.
Okay. So
So
it's not like I'm
there's room for
totally
you.
lost if I pick up your book.
No, like I think you could. I don't think the learning curve is that steep. Put it that way.
And I don't need to learn Latin or sing your book when I
No,
read
you're
it.
good.
Okay.
Although Jill does use a lot of Hebrew, which is fun.
I know she does. She does. And she's actually sang some of the minstrel songs from her book too. I don't know if you've heard those,
I don't
but
think
I
I've
have.
heard her singing them, but I've heard that she did that, which I
She
think is
did.
fantastic.
She did. I actually have the bootleg videos on my computer, so I could probably just leak those to the world without her
There
knowing.
you go.
So I won't do that. I won't do that. But okay, so you have Heir of Light, and it looks like you chose the character Sir. Is it Rigel?
Rigel, yep.
Rigel Barak. Barak.
Barak, yeah.
Explain. Who is this guy that we're going to get to know?
Oh boy, who is Sir Rigel? So in the original series, he is a knight that comes alongside the main characters and kind of helps them out for a bit. He stands out for being kind of like, I don't know, one of the more eligible bachelors in Eretz. He's in his early 30s. He's an heir. He's rich. He's handsome. He's silver tongued. He's got a great sarcastic, kind of witty sense of humor. But there are a lot of question marks there, I thought, where you have this figure who, okay, he's rich and handsome and has all the things. Why is he not taken yet? Or
Yeah.
there's also the interesting layer of him not being the firstborn in his family,
Okay.
but he is the heir. And there's a lot to kind of unpack there, the circumstances of that and how
Hmm.
that might have impacted him.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I was super excited to dive into his character. And I mean, a huge part of his appeal to me was just that he was the character in the series I had the biggest crush on. So, I just am thrilled that I got to write this story.
And that's really the best type of crush too, where you have a crush on a character and then you get to make them whatever you want.
Absolutely. So great.
That's awesome. Okay, so you mentioned Eretz, and I'm assuming that's the land in which we are entering once we open this novel, correct?
Yes, yeah, Eretz, which I think is Hebrew for like Earth or like world or something like that. I think
Like
it's
that?
Earth.
Okay.
Yes, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so that's the name of like the continent that everything takes place on.
Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about the plot of this story. Like, what's the overarching story that we're going to be, traveling along with Sir Rigel on?
Okay, I will do my best.
Okay.
So, Sir Rigel is a knight, but he's also a spy. So, when our
Okay.
story begins, he is on a spy mission in kind of a sketchy, rarely seen area of Eretz, trying to uncover the plot that they think might be originating here.
Okay.
This is in the wake of Jill's original series. Obviously, they kind of solved the big problem in that series, but evil has a way of cropping up in new ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rigel is on a mission to kind of nip that in the bud a little bit. But while he's on this mission, he comes face to face with a woman from his past
Okay.
who he lost contact with 16 years ago, but has been sort of haunted by ever since. And she is carrying a lot of burdens and a lot of scars, literal and figurative scars of her own. And together they discover that there's this kind of larger plot that nobody saw coming that is a danger to her. And they are kind of uniquely equipped to deal with it. So it basically becomes a bit of a heist.
Okay.
A bit of a seafaring adventure situation. Ooh. As these two set out to kind of intercept this threat before it can reach the rest of the world.
Okay, I like that. I like how you're dancing around all the spoilers and trying really hard not to. I am
trying so hard. So hard.
That's the hardest thing when you're like an author and you're out there and people are like, what's your book about? And you're like, well, I can tell you about like 1%. Yeah. The rest you have to read, because if I say any more, it's going to totally ruin the book. So I'm looking at the cover, and there's you mentioned seafaring, so there's a ship on the cover. There's, from the chin down, a really brutish looking piratey type guy, which I'm assuming is Sir Rigel. There's an owl. Why the owl? What's the owl?
Ooh. So let's see if I can do that without giving spoilers. Seth, my female lead, is very interesting in a lot of ways, but one of the cool things that I often forget to tell people, honestly, because it slides out of my brain. Yeah. She actually has magic, which is sort of rare. It's relatively rare in this world that Jill's made. And with Jill, we kind of came up with a way for her magic to be actually pretty unique and different from other people's magic. Mm-hmm. And the owl is sort of symbolic of that in a lot of ways.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's symbolic of her in ways too. So that is kind of all I think I should say about that. But I was pumped to get that little Easter egg in there and to represent her on the cover that way.
That is really cool. It's really cool. So I won't ask any more about that because then, spoilers. But tell us a little bit about Seth and Rigel's history if you can. Like, you said they knew each other, and now in this book they've kind of like, he never thought he'd see her again. Were they romantically involved, and then this is enemies to lovers, or broken relationships to healed relationships? What kind of romantic trope are we deliciously involving here?
I would say that this is like a second chance at love situation.
Okay.
With a little bit of friends to lovers, childhood friends to lovers thrown in. Because when they knew each other, it was for a relatively brief period where they were kind of thrown in together and had to survive together when they were in their teens. And so in that short time, it was a time of kind of high intensity because you're in survival mode and you can get really close to a person that way, and feelings can develop.
Right.
But also, again, because of the high intensity things they were dealing with, they were parted under not the best circumstances. And so a lot of the romantic aspect of this story is kind of dealing with the fallout of that and with the baggage that they've been carrying since then, and seeing if there's a way for them to find a way forward.
Okay.
find a way back to that, but also find a way forward into a new future together.
Right, where it's not just a relationship based on trauma.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then there's also a fun component because in their time surviving, there's a little bit of Robin Hood
Mm,
capers going on, and so they might have to lean on a little bit of their skills in that department as a
okay.
team in
Okay.
order to get this job done. Just
All
throwing
right.
that out there.
All right. That sounds good. That sounds good. So they have this relationship that they're kind of building on the past, and then they're coming into the story and they're fighting villainous, nefarious forces and all of that stuff. And do we see any cameos from the characters from the other books in the Blood of Kings Legends?
We do see cameos,
Aha.
which is very fun. Am I allowed to
Aha.
say what cameos, or do I just say yes, we
I,
have cameos?
I don't know. You would know. Is that a spoiler? I don't think it's a spoiler. You could just name
Probably not.
names. You could name names.
Yeah.
Like you have cameos, here's a name, but just don't tell us how they come in.
Okay, sure. Yes. So Rigel has a brother, a half brother,
Okay.
who's a pretty important figure in the original series.
Okay.
And one of the fun cameos that I enjoyed writing this story
Mhm.
was his, and was exploring, okay, we see these two characters doing very separate things in the original
Okay.
series, but
Yep.
what is their dynamic as brothers? When put them in
Oh,
a room together, what happens? Do they get
yeah.
along? Do they not? And that was fantastic. It told me so much about Rigel putting those two in a room together.
Okay.
And yeah, I think people will enjoy that because the brother Egan is
Mhm.
very beloved and just a really important character in the original series.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. And brothers are always a unique dynamic too. I mean,
Oh
really.
yeah.
They really, really are. Now, I had a brother, but I only had one brother, so I never got to see him interact with, you know,
Mm-mm.
more than one. But my son has a friend who's like a best friend, and he's might as well be a brother because he's at our house all the time, or vice versa. And it's really
Hey.
interesting to watch them interact because I'm like, you guys like are so entertaining and so obnoxious simultaneously. I'm not sure what to do with this.
And brothers, yeah, just they can get away with things talking to each other in ways that I feel like,
Yeah.
I don't know, girls can't. I don't have sisters, I only have brothers. So that is
Okay.
just something I'm intimately familiar with, and that's just, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But but it is fascinating to watch sometimes and
Yeah.
fun to write.
Yeah. Oh, I bet it is. Well, at least you had some brothers to act as models. So did you tell your brothers now, hey, I'm going to sit here and take notes on your interactions?
That's just been my whole life at this point, so it's all in my head.
Your life has been inspiration for your debut
There
novel.
you go. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's super fun. Super fun. Now, how much of the world did you get to create, or was the majority of it already in place when you picked up writing this novel as a spinoff?
Ooh, that's a fun question. I actually got to create a whole section of the world.
Okay.
Not create, I mean, the island, Jill has a map, so you can look at the map. She had little, markers for all the different places. And so
Hmm.
we all got to like kind of pick our place.
Okay.
But if that place hadn't been seen in the original series, then we got a lot of freedom to kind of explore, okay, but what does this look like? Or,
Okay.
what would the weather be? The amount of time we spent discussing weather in our little team group chat is just hilarious. The
That's
thought that went
funny.
into that. But
That's
yeah, so
funny.
I got to, yeah, I got to kind of work with Kelly for certain areas where we had crossover, so
Okay.
we could collab on like, okay, what does this place look like? But I had the most fun creating or like building the island of Hamina, which has a
Hmm.
very like Pirates of the Caribbean kind of
Okay.
feel, like this
Yeah.
very kind of rickety, sketchy coastal town, lots
Hmm.
of pirates. And yeah, it was fun to bring that vibe into the sort of Aladdin and Robin Hood vibes that we already had going on.
So you really got a mixture of everything in this book.
I know, so many things. Yeah, but it's
That's
fun. It's a fun mix.
that's really cool. That's really cool. Now it says that they're stealing, like they're trying to pull off a heist and steal a deadly weapon. What can you tell us
Yes,
about the weapon and the intent that's behind it? Like what they're trying to do with the weapon that makes them have to steal the weapon. I did not
for
finish
sure.
that well.
I think I'm following what you're saying.
Okay, okay.
Uh, so they discover that someone has kind of found a new way to tap the magic system, or rather to
Okay.
abuse the magic system. It was a gift that was given by the god character to only certain people. But this villain has decided that those rules don't apply to him and that there's a way for him to kind of exploit that for himself. And unfortunately, Seth, being uniquely gifted as she is kind of his principal target.
Okay.
And because of circumstances where they are in the world, the fact that they don't really have access to help, the fact that this weapon could be multiplied or sent out to people very quickly, they kind of have to act in the moment and intercept. So fortunately, they have some experience doing stuff like that. So it's par for the course for them.
Yeah, sounds like they'll just roll with it pretty well, pretty easy. So with the story then, you're writing kind of a romance, you're writing medieval fantasy. How do you then weave in spiritual elements, or do you weave in spiritual elements?
Absolutely. So when we're kind of building their characters at the beginning, the thing that kind of comes through the most strongly and that forms a lot of their character is the wound. And often that comes down to lies that they're believing. Often, I mean, almost always, that comes down to, at its core, ways that they fundamentally don't understand God.
Right.
And so for both of those characters, they have all these wounds, they have all this baggage that they have to work through, but like it emerges very organically from that there's spiritual stuff that has to be dealt with in order for them to kind of break through and find that truth. So yeah. There's a strong thread of that for both of them. And they play off each other nicely.
Yeah. So what are the lies that they're believing? Can you share those, or is that spoiler?
I think I can hint at them.
Okay.
I can do my best.
Okay.
Yeah. So Rigel, one of the things that I thought was very interesting about him from the beginning was that he appears on the surface to be very polished, very put together, which is often, a bit of a flag that maybe there's more going on there.
Right.
And the more I dug, the more I kind of discovered that, like he's a person who performs a lot. But fundamentally deep down, it's because he believes that God is waiting for him to trip up and that he's got to perform.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of the big wound that he's dealing with. And there's a lot of kind of backstory there. And I hope I didn't say too much.
I don't think
pull
you
a
did.
Tom Holland there.
No.
But yeah, so working through that was really meaningful for me because it was personal in a lot of ways. And that was his. Seth's emerged more organically from her backstory, that she's a person who has a ton of trauma. And so the things that emerge from that, the trust issues, the inability to believe that, how could I have gone through all this horrible stuff if God really loves me that much? Those things just kind of inevitably are going to arise from a past like that. And so she kind of will have to face that too.
Face that. Awesome. Cool. I love it. Okay, so we have The Blood of Kings, which is the first trilogy that Jill Williamson wrote. And now we have The Blood of Kings Legends. So we have book 1, which is Squire of Truth. And that one was written by Jill as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have book 2 called Lord of Winter. And that was written by
Andrew Swearingen.
And then book 3 is Lady of Shadows, written by Kelly
Burnlake.
And then you get to wrap up what do they call it if it's a 4-book series? The quadruple?
That does not sound right.
No, that doesn't
sound
right.
With it.
The quadruple, the quadrant, okay, so there's 4 books.
There is a word, but I don't know it.
Yes. I don't know it either. You get to wrap up the series there.
I do, yeah.
So by wrapping that up and like having the 4th book, did you have other things from the other books that you are responsible to tie together too? Or is your book standing alone enough where you didn't really have to worry too much about the other books that had been written?
I didn't have to worry too much about that because they are meant and designed to be pretty standalone. But it's always fun when you can kind of like name drop or hint at things that just happened. Or Kelly and I had an interesting situation in that we kind of followed each other's route. Like I followed her route a little bit.
Oh, funny.
In my journey. So we got to kind of see some of the same faces and have conversations with some similar people or mention things that had just happened in that place or whatever. So that was fun too.
So how many calls did you have to collaborate to make sure you didn't screw each other's stories up?
There have been lots of group chat additions and back and forth, and yeah, lots of calls. And for me, I would send big chunks to Kelly
Okay.
to just check, like, does this fit with your vision? Like, am I capturing this correctly? But yeah, that's a little bit of a dance because you're always worried, like, oh man, if
Yeah.
I add this little detail and then forget to check with someone, like, will this be a problem? But we
Right.
we are in constant communication as a team, which is also great, and I'm so thankful for that. But it's
Yeah.
allowed us to really collab and build stuff together, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I've never done a collaboration where stories have the potential of crisscrossing. And I can only imagine, like, if you put the tree in the front yard in the wrong spot,
Right?
someone's going to catch that, right? So you guys
There
really
are
have to be pretty
risks.
detailed.
There are definitely risks. Yeah.
Oh, that's
But that's
funny.
why the checking is very necessary.
Yes, yes. I would imagine. I would imagine. So what do you think, as an author, is one of the biggest lessons that you learned writing this book, that you're just like, wow, that really changed my perspective, or that changed kind of how I look at story?
Hmm. Good question. I think one of the biggest things for me in this process, because it's like my first, and I'm getting to work with like greats like Joe Williamson
Hmm.
and Susan May Warren, it has just been a really good lesson in like holding a story with loose hands
Ah,
and
okay.
approaching it humbly, and you're handing it to people going, make it better, like show me
Right.
how to improve this, right?
Uh-huh.
And you don't have the liberty of being like tight-fisted with your story the way that I
Yeah.
maybe was when I was 15 and trying to indie publish, and it's like, no, I don't need to show this to anybody, I'm happy with it. Like it's an opportunity to grow, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like, wow, like I have access to your brilliant storytelling brain, like please teach me your wisdom, show me
Sure.
how to make this better.
Sure.
So that I think would be the biggest and like most fantastic
Yeah.
blessing, but a lesson too that I got from this process.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what do we have to look forward to after we've read Heir of Light? Do we have more Nikki books coming our way, or are you still waiting to see where the road's going to take you?
I've got to see where the road's going to take me. I've got lots of ideas, of
Yeah.
course, don't we all,
Oh, right,
floating
right.
around?
Hmm.
Yes, but whether or not time will allow, I mean, I am planning a trip to Korea later this
Okay.
year and been praying about that as more of a potential long-term thing. I'm not sure, but there's just
Sure.
it's a fun stage of life because school is done and the
Right,
possibilities are endless.
right.
Yeah, but definitely I think more stories are coming. I just
Awesome.
can't promise when.
Can't promise when, but that's okay. That's all right, because we've got Heir of Light to look forward to, and that releases September 16th, if I've got my dates
September
right.
16th.
All
Yep.
right, awesome. So if readers want to get to know more about you and follow you and your journey, how do they do that? What's the best way?
All right. So I am on Instagram. I'm not super great about posting, but I want to be better for sure. But the platform that I'm the most diligent on would be my YouTube channel,
Okay.
which is where I do the most updates and just the most kooky fun content. And yeah, it's a lot of fun and it's very chill. And I love it when people engage with the videos and talk to me in the
Sure.
comments, and
Sure.
it's just a blast. So come
That's
and hang out
awesome.
with me on YouTube.
What's the
And also
channel?
my newsletter. It's
Oh,
just my name, Nikki
oh,
Florica.
okay.
Yeah, so I'm easy to
Okay.
find for sure.
Awesome.
But yeah, and then my newsletter through my website. So
Awesome.
nikiflorica.com. We'd love to have you on the newsletter too.
All right. Well, this is a blast. Everybody rush out and get Heir of Light, A Blood of Kings novel. You can pre-order it now. And there's a couple of books to tide you over until Nikki's releases on September 16th. So this was super fun having you on, Nikki. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.